Hey guys, today we have some actual good news from Bungie. Maybe. Interesting stuff. Let's talk a little bit about what was revealed today for the January 30th update. Yes, this video is basically just going to be me reading through the This Week at Bungie update with my thoughts sprinkled throughout. The link is in the description, and I will try to post some timestamps as well. First, let's talk about the raid reward rework, since that's probably the most exciting of the updates. Raid rewards are getting whipped into shape to be a little more exciting, starting with mods. With the patch, raid gear will now come with selectable mods built into the gear. The mods are legendary by default, and you can swap between them for one Callus token. They have unlimited uses, as long as you have tokens, but at the moment, the mods are literally built into the raid gear. These perks will be more generic bonuses as opposed to mechanically specific things like, as shown in this example, the Hunter Cloak giving 25% more solar damage while anywhere on the Leviathan, so that's Leviathan and Eater of Worlds, and presumably DLC 2's Raid Lair, and presumably the other two mods give Arc and Void damage respectively. The goal here was just to make you stronger in the raid. I really like this, combined with Masterwork Armor allowing you to reforge your resilience, recovery, and mobility. Obviously, one huge negative is that you can't use these mods in anything other than the raid armor, which kind of goes against the whole infuse whatever you want situation we have with the game. As a collector, I personally don't mind because I like having sets of gear that are good for different things, and having the raid gear be the best gear for the raid to me makes sense. It's going to be really good. But there's also an issue that since the raid mods are built into the raid gear, that the raid gear outside of the raid is now worse because the mods will have no effect. I do have some good news though. I have received confirmation that you can replace the raid mods with regular mods if you want to. So you can have a raid set that you use in the raid and a raid set that you can use outside of the raid if you want to have multiple armor sets. For non-collectors, I see why that is an issue. Same for people who like the raid gear outside of the raid and maybe don't want to get an entirely new set. Part of this decision was Bungie not wanting to clog inventories with even more mods, at least at this time where there are several dozens of mods floating in inventories and vaults. They could do something where raid gear has two mod slots, one for the raid mod and then one for a generic mod, but these were all pretty quickly done, so it could have been a time constraint related type issue, and that's not to say that they couldn't do something like that in the future. We may have to wait until the global mod rework before something like that would be implemented, or possibly later into the future. Next, double drops have been reintroduced into the raid, where if you do prestige mode before you do the normal mode, you will get drops for both, something that we had in Destiny 1. Probably should have been like that from the get-go, but at least it's fixed right now. Next, raid encounters now always drop an item. The loot tables have been unified, so now any encounter can drop something. Raid gear is not tied to a specific encounter anymore. Also, every encounter can drop an exotic now. And that's where I feel like conversations would have normally ended. But no, we get actual clarification on these exotics. Exotics dropped will not be an engram. They will be actual non-quest weapons and armor. Armor and weapon drop rates are weighted equally and are class restricted. So if you're playing on a Titan, you're going to get a Titan item. You see how nice that is, Bungie? Actual clarification on what's happening. Like they guessed what questions we were going to ask, and then they just answered them. Finally. So nice. That being said, I get that not getting a drop does feel bad. Getting only tokens kind of sucks. But getting too many drops can mean that people gear up very, very quickly, and then they have no more reasons to run the raid, which is another problem for Bungie to solve. Next, Benedict will now sell a rotating selection of raid gear for tokens and shards, assuming you have cleared the raid that week. They wanted to prevent people from hoarding tons of tokens from normal mode and then spending them on prestige gear from the vendor, which thank you for not wussing out on something like that. Even if prestige gear is just kind of whatever to most people, I thank you for keeping the integrity of it. Thank you for not wussing out on that. There is now an exotic raid ghost that can drop from Callus and or Argos named Contender's Shell. It is not as grindy as something like the Nano Phoenix, but it's basically that item, that super rare item for people to try to go chase. There is bad luck protection built in as well, unlike Nano Phoenix, at least I'm pretty sure unlike Nano Phoenix. So the more you do the raid, the higher your chances become at getting this shell. So what are the perks? First, Seeker of Brilliance gives encounters a chance to drop a bright engram with similar bad luck protections built in. The longer you go without an engram, the higher the chance the next time. Next, Seeker of Opulence adjusts the loot table from exotics that can drop from encounters. When you do get an exotic to drop, it's still probably going to be a pretty low chance, but when you do get one to drop, Opulence gives a 50% chance for that exotic to be pulled from the list of exotics that you don't already have. Finally, Seeker of Glory tracks encounter victories on the Leviathan. Yeah, that's definitely a very powerful raid ghost in terms of being rewarding. All in all, good stuff here for the raid. Not a perfect situation, sure, but definitely improving. A lot of this is well overdue and probably does not create the crazy hype to bring people back into the raid on an epic scale, but again, it's going to be baby steps for a while. Next, Masterwork Armor is coming in the January 30th update. Masterwork Armor gives a 3% damage reduction while in your super. This effect stacking for up to 15% reduction, 5 armor pieces. You can also re-roll your stat package on your armor when masterworked for 1 core and 10 shards. Note that Masterwork Armor is going to launch with a visual bug where if you re-roll very quickly after a re-roll, the progress bar will fill up, but it's not going to do anything. It will not take your materials though, so don't worry, they are working on a fix. Probably not the greatest thing that they're releasing something that is already bugged, but at least it's not a game-breaking bug, and at least they're warning us ahead of time. In PvE, when you're in your super, you tend to already feel pretty invincible. You can eat a lot of damage, so I think this effect will feel like it's doing nothing, even though it is. I think it's more of a factor in PvP, where roaming supers, especially melee supers, tend to get focused down very easily, and introducing any amount of extra survivability is going to be good. The armor stat reroll, recovery, mobility, resilience. Again, it's a good band-aid fix for gear with low recovery, but it doesn't solve the problem of recovery just being the best stat and everything else being garbage. At least everyone can get some more recovery until that issue is fixed, but that is the greater picture issue that needs to be solved. We also have a quick preview for some other patch notes coming. Prometheus Lens getting fixed up, and then a bunch of fixes and tweaks to stuff that you can just read on the screen. And you're reading, and okay, moving on. Finally, the shader issue. Everyone knows the issue. You cannot mass delete shaders, and that's really annoying. So why? Why not? Why can't we do that? To quote senior design lead Tyson Green, shaders are individual items, and individual items trigger individual reward bundles when dismantled, even when those rewards are simple. That creates a challenge for us that we haven't addressed, which is triggering dozens or hundreds of reward bundles simultaneously when an entire stack of shaders is dismantled. This is challenging not simply because an arbitrary number of rewards need to be run and delivered simultaneously, but because we also have to safeguard against scenarios where this produced items that couldn't fit in your inventory, which could be instantly lost. Example, shaders that produce glimmer could easily evaporate into nothing if you were at or near the glimmer cap. End quote. He goes on to say that they could introduce a button combination to delete en masse, but it's not in the spirit of what players are asking for. Although, I personally kind of think it is to a degree. People just want to be able to actually do it, but I get that they don't want to break rewards, even if they are minuscule in nature. They also have some other pieces of feedback that they're working on with shaders in general. Personally, if the change is as simple as adding a new button combo, which I doubt it is, but if it was, I think doing that would be just fine at this point. I think the issue might be that they could do something now, but it would mess with those rewards granted, so that is understandable, even if it is very frustrating still as a player. However, insight like this is nice and should happen more often. I like knowing why things can or cannot happen, and I think the rest of the community appreciates this kind of candor and feedback and response to our issues. All in all, it's looking like a good update. Hopefully nothing that will involve any sort of scandal or controversies or anything like that. Bungie just needs a couple of good updates in a row, few good updates in a row, no earth-shattering issues, no controversies, no scandals, and I think that trust will slowly start to build back up again with the community. Again, there isn't too much here that is going to revolutionize the game. It's probably not going to be anything that whips the general population into a frenzy, but it's an improvement, and at this point, I will take what I can get. We all know that it's going to be another long road before we get back to a spot where everything's all nice, but I will take what I can get. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.